सो आज के हमारे अगले स्पीकर डॉक्टर इफ्तिखार अली सैफी साहब हैं, who is a graduate, Unani graduate from Aligarh Muslim University, and he is a doctorate of naturopathy from United States of America, and he is practicing as a senior consultant in nutrition therapy, hijama expert, and the nutrition therapist as well as herbalist. May I request Dr. Iftikhar Ahmad Saifi Sahab to please come and share his knowledge and experiences with us, because we do not have much time to discuss the things in much detail. So I'll request him to please confine and present himself in stipulated time that is given to him, that is 15 minutes. Here we are going to have a conversation with Dr. Iftikhar Ahmad Saifi Sahab. Are you there, sir?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Okay. Please continue.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakallah khairan kathiran for giving me the time and opportunity to say a few words about the ongoing COVID-19 condition and exploring the possibilities to fight against it. I would like to talk about the basics of baseline of health. Alhamdulillah, here are mashallah experts. Dr. Wasim mashallah gave a beautiful presentation, and other experts mashallah are here, which will throw light on the possibilities regarding the mufridat and murakkabat and how to deal with this condition based on 100% Unani system of medicine. And the topic that I'm giving here right now is to discuss about the dietary part, what we can do to fight against these kinds of pathogenic bacteria or viruses. As I mentioned earlier, that I would talk about the basics, because unless we pay attention to the basics, we can't really get into the roots, we can't solve the problem. As we know that only 1% of the population until now has been infected by this virus. So 99% is still, they are alhamdulillah protected. And we just want to pay attention to this 99% of population, so that if they adopt certain measures, if they get exposed to this virus, their body may handle it properly. You might be noticing that there is a trend of this viral infection and causing mortality. There are so many areas of the world, they did not have much cases. There are so many areas of the world where they were infected, but they did not die from it. So different scenarios in the world. And there are so many speculations about this amongst the experts. And so many speculations, so many theories are coming up. But one thing is quite clear, and it's quite unanimous, that if our immune system is working fine, then we are good to go. So let's talk about that immune system. And as also Dr. Wasim expressed about Quwwat Mudawwir Badan, Mudafiyat Badan, and that's really more than important. So how to attain that to the maximum? Basic thing starts with our lifestyle. And in lifestyle, when we talk, there are primarily three things. Number one is food. Number two, little physical activity. And number three is sleep. These are quite basic things. There is not much lore and fame talking about these subjects. But believe me, if you can focus on these things, you can protect this 99% of the population. Now, you know, if you even see the trend of mortality, you would see the people, as I think there was some doctor expert just came in, I think Dr. Maas, he also said that the people who had heart diseases and other chronic condition, they suffered most. Syndrome X or insulin resistance or higher insulin level, they were the primary patients who got not just infected, but they actually died because of this condition. And as we know that when our insulin goes high, the inflammation goes high, and then chances of getting infections goes high. So this is just one part. So let me just focus on a few basic things. First, starting with the food. In food, everyone knows about vitamin C and vitamin D and zinc, and then the kind of food that we should be taking. So I will not really take too much time focusing on this thing. In short, if we take like a bouquet of fresh vegetables, beans, lentils, some good source of fats, meat, we have the chances of getting immune system is higher. But let me just throw light on few important things that, for example, we are taking vegetables, but if we are boiling vegetable more than one boil, then we lose the nutrients and micronutrients and phytochemicals and enzymes because we delete it because of overheating it. So even though a lot of people are eating a lot of vegetable, considering it healthy, but they are not doing justice by boiling it twice or thrice. Like, the way we cook, it's like overly cooked vegetables with a lot of oils in it, and then all the spices, they are burnt. So we don't know what is left in the food except for the taste. So the rule is that vegetables should not be overly cooked or boiled, number one. We don't have to take salads because everyone can't take salad. So the rule is that we take like saga style thing. We can saute vegetables. We can, even in the salads, we don't have to take like, we need to make it tasty and beautifully looking. And always we can add good salad dressing in it, which can be healthy and tasty at the same time. So chop the salad and then add a little olive oil in it. Or maybe you can make your own salad dressing. For example, to make a healthy salad dressing, which has got all the fighting factors in it. You can have little citrus in it, for example. You can have like an orange squeeze in the blender. Take little walnuts or maybe cashew nuts, put in the blender, and maybe a little for crunchiness. You can have little peanuts, maybe sesame seeds roasted, and then just blend it. It will be super duper healthy, tasty salad dressing for you. And then you can enjoy this salad. But again, I'm not in favor of just taking salad. We need some protein. So for protein, we can have red meat, we can have fish, we can have chicken, we can have all kinds of beans. For people who are vegetarian, they need to pay attention to get a quality chain of amino acid. We need to take multiple or variety of beans or lentils, then we get. Because the quality chain of amino acids you can get from animal protein, but it's really hard to get it from vegetables unless we mix and few of the beans and lentils together. Not necessarily at the same time, but like for example, if you have a program for 1 week, make sure you add multiple beans in 1 week time. Zinc is really, really an important thing because zinc is it is less talked about mineral, but it is highly, highly important. And also, as I remember, Dr. Maas, he said that those who died, they lost the taste and the smell. One of the signs of deficiency of zinc is that you lose your taste and your smell. So this is the peculiar sign that people who are deficient in zinc, they will lose their taste and smell. So now, how much zinc we need? We need like 10 milligram. This is the RD or dietary recommended allowance. 10 milligrams. How to get it? You can get it from all the animal sources. The most is like red meat and fish, but we have some in beans and nuts also, like walnuts. And then we know about vitamin C, all the citrus fruits we can take, from lemon we can take. And there's something called quercetin, which is really, really important to fight against viruses. And it's in garlic and ginger and onion. Those three things. Well, a food that has that already, but what I'm trying to focus is it should be prepared nicely, should be justified nicely. And the other thing, we should not be using really too much of the refined oils. Why? In the last 40 years, refined oils, they have been talked highly, but unfortunately, they are the worst ever created oils. Highly inflammatory. They suppress the immune system down to a greater length. There are so many studies coming up with that. And instead of this, we can take desi ghee, pure ghee. It is full of lauric acid, full of ketones. You can take olive oil if you can afford. So now for example, if someone can't afford, people say desi ghee is expensive and refined oil is a cheaper version. Well, you don't have to take 4 tablespoons per day in serving, like in cooking. Just take half tablespoon and you get the same amount of cost, approximately. I don't know exactly, but you have some goodies in it, Plus, you just get rid of the inflammatory part, which are, all the refined oils are loaded with that. So that said, the other important thing is that at any given time or in one session, we should not be taking a bigger meal because, we have limitation of our digestive system, how much food our body can handle at any given time. So portion size should be really smaller at any given time so digestive system can handle it properly. So you can take the best food in the world, but if quantity is too much, then your digestive system can handle it. The end result will not be conducive to health. So it is really more than important to just limit the amount of food. Now, third thing is about food is timing of food. When should be eating food? Now, there's so many positive studies coming up with the time interval of food. We should be giving at least 14 hours to 16 hours, which is called intermittent fasting. And then our body really becomes a good fighting machine. The study says, for example, in 2016, Japanese doctor Yoshinori got a Nobel Prize on it. First time someone worked on fasting and its benefits. And he got a Nobel Prize on it. He proved that if we fast per day, 14 to 16 hours, then our body goes into the state called autophagy. Body starts to fight body starts to eat itself, meaning, for example, within 10 to 12 hours, what happens, our systemic circulating sugar runs out. Because even though if we are sleeping, for example, our lungs are working, our heart is pumping, and all the body's inactivities are going on. So they are utilizing the calories within the body. So now after 10 to 12 hours, all the sugar, the glucose is gone. Now our body needs some fuel to sustain the body. So what happens, body starts to look for those things which can be trapped and converted into fuel for energy. Now, it is very easy for the body to just find the bacteria, the viruses, the debris, the worn out cells, even the cancer cells, and body converts those things into usable form of fuel for energy, and body just burns it out. So this is how he proved, Dr. Yoshinori, you can Google about him, that even, we can put a check on cancer if we just adopt this thing. Now, regarding the Islamic fasting, for example, month of Ramadan, where we do not drink even water, because this study is when you drink water, but you don't eat food for 14 to 16 hours. Now, there are some studies recently came up with the dry fasting, they call it. So you don't eat food, but you don't drink water also. Now, what happens in this? They have found that dry fasting increased the autophagy up to 400%. So way much more than, because now the body doesn't have to, arrange for only food, but it has to arrange for water also. So the autophagy is increased by up to 400%. Now, practically, it is not possible to do this dry fasting the whole year. So what we suggest, just do Islamic fasting you're doing in the month of Ramadan, and maybe Monday and Thursday you can fast. But other days, you go with the intermittent fasting. So you don't eat food for 14 to 16 hours, but you can drink water. Now, it looks like difficult that every day, how can I be away from food for 14 to 16 hours? Let me tell you, it is really more than simple. For example, you took your dinner at 7 o'clock in the evening or 6 o'clock, and then 7 to 7 in the morning is already 12 o'clock. So a major part of this, you were sleeping, So now just add 4 hours further into 7 o'clock. So 11 o'clock, you eat your first meal. You break your fast, at 11 o'clock. And then 11 to 7 is your eating window. And at night, 7 to 11 is your non-eating window, which is called catabolic phase. And when we eat, it's called anabolic phase. As we know that during catabolic phase, our body goes through into the detoxification mode. It goes into the, repairing mode. It goes into the healing mode. But in anabolic phase or eating phase, our body is busy with digestion and absorption of food. It doesn't do much about taking care of the other, immune-related functions of the body. So it is really important to have a bigger stretch between these things. And it's really simply, you can do that. Now, another thing is, which is really, really very promising. It's called, like you might be hearing, low carb, moderate protein, and adequate fat diet program, or some people call it ketogenic diet program. But I'm not a big fan of the regular ketogenic program, which is being talked about so much these days. But we have modified it, like we call it healthy version of ketogenic diet program. For example, one of the in the regular ketogenic program, people talk that yes, we can take fat regardless of the kind of fat, which is totally I'm not in favor of that. So again, so what happens now, for example, when we take when we get rid of the sugars from the body or carbohydrates. Now again, understand, I don't know if I have time to explain this, but I'll just in a brief I'll explain. Carbohydrates doesn't mean only sugar. Carbohydrates, like fruits are carbohydrates, grains are carbohydrates, rice are carbohydrates. There are complex carbohydrates and there are simple carbohydrates. What we are talked about right now, in particular, that just get rid of the simple carbohydrates the most if possible and try to reduce the complex carbohydrates also. But you can take your carbohydrates from all the vegetables, all the greens, multiple kind, all beautiful colored vegetables. They are still carbohydrates, but they give you very little calories, which convert into glucose. What happens? What is the problem with glucose? Glucose makes more free radicals. To understand that, let me explain briefly what happens. Our body can run on two fuels. One is glucose, which comes from carbohydrates. The other is ketones, which comes from fat. Now, fat can be stored fat, or fat can be that we take from outside in food. Now, generally what is happening, particularly these days right now, because of two reasons, that our body is trained to live on glucose, not on ketones. So what has happened, what happens? See the mitochondria, which is the powerhouse of the cells. Now what happens? To produce energy, mitochondria need air, means oxygen from air, and from food, either glucose or ketones. Now, primarily our food, regardless of the country that we live in, most of the places globally, we are taking glucose, mixing with oxygen, our mitochondria is producing energy. Good. But what is happening? When our mitochondria produces energy in presence of glucose, our body ends up in a lot of free radicals. As opposed to when mitochondria mixes oxygen with ketones, it produces less free radicals. As we know, these free radicals cause inflammation in the body. They suppress the immune system. So, and there are so many studies we see that, even the cancer cells, they do not survive when the body runs on ketones. So really, it is more than important that we shift a little bit of food. I'm not saying just give up 100% your carbs, but just reduce it as much as possible and say 100% no to refined carbohydrates. And now, again, so you can see my other discussions about this subject because my expertise is Syndrome X, where heart diseases related to diabetes. How to get this state, which is called fat adaptogenic mode or ketogenic mode, it may take some time to fall into that category. So what happens now when our body start to run or use the ketone as a fuel for energy instead of glucose, our body, has a state which is the best immuno-powered state of the body, which can, fight bacteria and viruses and so many things. As we know, there is no one single drug which we can really say that it is antiviral because simply it mutates. So body knows what to do best, and let's help the body do its job, and body knows what to do there. Now, ketones by themselves are super duper fighting factors which fight against the pathogenic any microorganism, and particularly the viruses. Now, for example, let's talk about this ghee or olive oil or coconut oil. Now, ghee is loaded with ketones. For some reason, for last 40 years, 50 years, we are convinced that we should be taking refined oils. And this, most of my patients, they say, hey, when I suggest, just take desi ghee or take butter, quality butter, and then take olive oil, they say, doctor has told me not to take these things. Rather, I take canola, safflower, cornflower, sunflower, or soybean oil. Well, they're highly inflammatory oil, but these are loaded with goodies. Lauric acid itself, is, very strong to fight against the pathogenic microorganism. And ketones themselves, they fight against it. In olive oil, there's something called tyrosol. Tyrosol, is known. Recently studies, they found this tyrosol themselves. They are the strongest known naturally killing viruses and bacteria. So I think it is better to focus on these basic things. Let's just try to jack up our baseline of health. And then we see that body is the best doctor. Let's help it. The other thing is, of course, exercises. When we exercise, there are so many studies coming up that the gene expression changes with exercises. There's one study came recently. They said just exercising for 6 months in, age group of above 50, it proved that the brain part increased in size. Because until now it was believed that, you can't play with the brain cells. Once they die, they die. If they are of what size, they rather keep on shrinking as we age. But, this is study proof 2 things. So the brain cells, they enlarged, and then newer brain cells, they developed. So this really, and the third thing they proved that genes don't change because it takes like maybe hundreds of thousands of years to change the gene, but they said gene expression changed with the exercises, and what matters is actually gene expression. So this, now the third thing, what I would like to pay attention to is the sleep. Sleep is really equally important, and we pay less attention to sleep. And unfortunately, these days, because of these new gadgets in hand, we are deprived of sleep. And now, particularly during this corona thing, everyone was hooked up with this mobile before sleeping and, lost. See, there is a study. They found that these days, actually, it is not during the corona studies, like maybe 1 year before study, that almost 70% of the population, they have sleep deprivation. And it's a huge number. Now, sleep is one of the important things. While during sleep, our body goes through the restoration, our muscles restore. Most of the immune-related things happen during 2 times. One is while sleeping, and the second, when, as I mentioned, during the non-eating window, when it crosses 9 or 8 hours without eating food. So now sleeping is an important part. Now in sleep, there are 3 important things to consider. One is the timing of sleep, and the other is quantity of sleep, and third is quality of sleep. So timing of sleep, when should we be sleeping? We should be sleeping early. Like if we sleep early, then it is better to sleep late, even if we sleep more. The studies say that we have a circadian rhythm of the body, and we need to respect a circadian rhythm. Now, go back to 50 years before. We didn't have that, or 70 years before. We didn't have lights. So normal circadian rhythm that Allah created us was that after Maghrib time, the sun goes down, and the people would go into, they will prepare for sleep. After Salatul Isha, go to bed. That was the normal scenario. What happens with this, following the circadian rhythm, after Maghrib time, one very, very important hormone in the brain, it's called melatonin. It will start to secrete from the pineal gland in the brain. And then this melatonin hormone is really, really very, it's rich in antioxidant capabilities. It is at least 10 times stronger than vitamin C, vitamin E, omega-3, and vitamin D. And subhanAllah, of the pineal gland, Allah has created this that we have every day in our brain, but unfortunately, we are not utilizing it. Why not? Because how it works. It is a light-sensitive hormone. So if the lights are on, it doesn't secrete. So if we have, that's why it doesn't secrete in the daytime. Now, even if it is night, but we are in the room with the tube lights on, and particularly right now with the gadgets on, the mobile phone, etc., then it's a light-sensitive hormone. It doesn't secrete. Now, we need 2 things to run this whole mechanism of immune system. Now, we should be sleeping, plus this, we should have melatonin present in the body, and then our body does repairment. See, wear and tear, the breakdown of the cells in billions takes place every day, 24 hours. But when it is repaired, as I said, during the sleep. Now, if we are sleeping, for example, we are sleeping late. So according to the circadian rhythm, we should be sleeping 3 to 4, max 4 hours after the sunset, right? Now, if we are, and this process runs just for 4 hours, right? If we are sleeping like 2 or 3 hours late, so maybe we are missing 50% of the repairing, but damage is 100% throughout the day. We age early, our immune system is down, and if we encounter any virus, bacteria, or any other disease, we have hard time fighting against it. So this is really, really important that we should be sleeping early. And as I said, quality of life, we should be turning all the lights down in the room, and we should be just turning off our mobile phone, not just put it on silent, maybe just turning off the mobile, put it in the drawer by 7 o'clock or something. And as a rule, we should be sleeping we should be taking our dinner 3 hours before sleeping, so that we sleep, nicely and coolly and calmly. So this is really important. Now, early sleep, for example, if a person is sleeping early, he sleeps, for example, 6 hours. It is better than sleeping 10 hours or sleeping late. So respecting that circadian rhythm, I think it's really, really important that we utilize what Allah has given us within the body, the fighting tools. Now, last thing I remember before I forget about vitamin D3. Now, vitamin D3 is of prime importance, as we know. Now, vitamin D3, normally our body should make vitamin D3. What has happened that these days everyone is low in vitamin D3? What is, and this is really important, that it is not just the sun that gives us vitamin D3. Of course, this is the basic. Now, to convert what we get from sun, we need quality fat in the body. Vitamin D3 is synthesized from the sun into vitamin D3 in presence of good fat. If we have this refined oil in the body, it doesn't do its job. We need quality fat. As I said again, we have dairy products, we have nuts, we have olive oil, we have coconut oil, we have seeds, So just if we focus on these things, we get plenty of quality fat, and inshallah, vitamin D3 can be converted. But now one word, as we need vitamin D3, for example, if someone is already exposed, infected, he needs to just boost his vitamin D3, take pills, right? But with pills, one caveat, one word of caution. If you're taking pills, now, for example, temporarily, we can suggest someone take 60,000 international unit of vitamin D3, or even more than that. But very, very important is that if you're taking vitamin D3, make sure you are taking vitamin K2 with this. Vitamin K2 is really, really important to take with this. Why? Because see, when we take vitamin D3, we have a lot of calcium availability in the body. And I think this is one of the reasons doctors prescribe vitamin D3, besides prescribing it for immune system. Now, what happens when we take vitamin D3, we have a lot of calcium, which is on one hand is good, but there's one problem. It doesn't go into the bones. Usually, extra calcium should go into the bones. That's why it is being given, one of the reasons. But we need vitamin K2, because vitamin K2 is the vitamin which directs calcium that it should go into the bones. Otherwise, it goes to wrong places. That's why there are so many studies now. You just Google the relationship between vitamin D3 and K2. If we are taking just vitamin D3 and not taking vitamin K2, the calcium is going into the kidneys, into the arteries, into the smooth muscles, and causing calcification, a lot of other chronic conditions. So what we normally suggest to people who are not infected, they don't need horrendous amount of vitamin D3. They just need to protect. Just get enough sun, take quality fat from food, and focus on the food. And what other thing, if you have to take vitamin D3, for example, if someone is taking vitamin D3 60,000, which is normally prescribed in India and elsewhere, divide it 10,000 per day. I mean, I give you an example. If you have to take, for example, 14 apples, why you have to take 14 apples on one day a week? Just divide it 2 apples per day so that your body can handle it better, right? Now, again, just give vitamin K2 together with this thing. SubhanAllah, in nature, for example, if you take dairy products, you get the precursor of vitamin D3, but there's vitamin K2 also. So Allah here made as a complete package. But if we are taking vitamin D3 extra, nothing is wrong with that. It's highly recommended if someone needs it. But make sure he takes vitamin K2, and vitamin K2 is also available in India right now. I have got the time, that's why I have stopped.
Okay, it was really wonderful and it was well appreciated by our audience. And thank you very much for sparing a very, very precious time of yours with us. I know that you are hectically busy, but it was really a very wonderful and very informative inundation from your side. We hope that it will be